You're listening to A Bit Later, a midlife stand-up podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ziegler, and I'm sitting down with comedians from across the globe to find out why they are pursuing stand-up comedy and what they are learning about themselves at this stage in their lives. Suzi Chicago is a refreshing voice in the world of comedy, starting her stand-up journey at the vibrant age of 69. She's performed in over 100 shows in the past year, and now at age 70, her special, Late Life Crisis, will be available soon on YouTube and SuziChicago.com. On this episode, we discuss Suzi's impeccable style, her lifelong fascination with stand-up, her career in the movie industry, and her obsession with aliens. Let's join the conversation with Suzi Chicago.
Well, thanks for having me, Steve. And I'm probably one of the most late in life comedians that I've met. Certainly, I my backstory is a long one. I've had several careers, and I worked in the movies as a costume designer for years, and worked on set, and lived in New Mexico then, and loved that. But 60, 80, 90-hour weeks. When I got into my 50s, I was like, no. Anyway, none of my careers did I ever plan. I want to tell you that. And
Okay.
they seem to be jobs you can just say that's what I am and you are it. Like uh being a comedian. You just get up and start talking into a mic. You can get a PhD for that, that's for sure. And then a costume designer while working in the costume department, maybe you went to the Costume Design Institute or something, but everybody works their way up from the bottom in the wardrobe department. And I just know how to dress. So that was my ticket for that. I was a great illustrator. I was a medical illustrator, which I um, had to do some schooling for that.
Mm-hmm.
And but all the things I've done, you don't really have to. I don't have to get a law degree I don't have to be a doctor or something like that, which is good because I always thought what was much more fun outside those classrooms than inside the classrooms. Which brings me to comedy, and once again I'm sitting in the back of the room cracking everybody up like I did in school, like I did in every job. Everybody said to me, "You're the personality hire," and just because you're funny doesn't mean you can be a good comedian because it's quite a craft. And I'm love to take something to the nth degree. And, if I'm going to do it, I want to succeed at it. I don't do well. I don't like to lose. So I only win. And people are like, well, it takes 10 years to find your comedic voice. Well, do I have 10 years? No, maybe not. But anyway, how I got into the comedy was not of my planning. I was at a mastermind group in South Carolina, and I can't say who it was because it's anonymous, but they said to me about halfway through our weekend, I was gifted this mastermind experience. I was asked to be in this group because I run our business. I always say it's my husband's business. Well, he's a knife maker and he's a very famous knife maker, but I do all the licensing contracts and I get what's called mailbox money. That's my job. And I do deals with knife companies and licenses designs out. And I've also licensed my own patterns out because I design patterns for fabric and stuff like that. But anyway, and I was trying to figure out a way to even increase his brand and whatever. And so I was at this mastermind group, and one of the people is a very famous therapist. And she said to me, why are you hiding behind your husband? Why isn't this you? You are a force of nature. She said, one, you've been making us laugh all weekend. She said, two, you're as smart as a whip. She said, why aren't you doing Susie's whatever? And I said, well, it's a long story, but I had someone who was a stalker and I've sort of been hiding from him for 25 years. She said, well, when was the last time you heard from this guy? I said, at least 25 years ago. She said, I don't think he's coming. I thought, maybe she's got a point there. So then they said, well, what would you do if you weren't doing this business? And I said, If I could do anything, if my mother wasn't watching, if my I was dead, if my daughter wasn't watching, who's very judgmental of every move I make, um, I said I'd be a stand-up comedian. And I said, but I don't want to live in my car and drive from city to city and do open mics at 1 o'clock in the morning and listen to DICK jokes. I just want to go straight to that special, if that's okay. And they laughed and they thought it was funny. And I thought it was funny. And, nothing else was said. We went on about more business things and more things with my husband, my husband's company. I keep saying, or his designs, our company. And so the last night of the weekend, they said, we have a surprise for you. And we were out at dinner. And so I'm looking for a box. I'm looking for a bag. I'm looking for something wrapped up with a bow.
Mhm.
They said, we got you 10 minutes at an open mic in town. I don't even act. I
10
don't have
minutes is a long time.
a mixed mic. So there was music and
Music
stuff.
too. Yeah.
I didn't know anything about mics, open mics or mics at all. I knew nothing.
Right.
And so I'm like, how did you get this? And of course, these were some big people. And they said, well, we know a guy. So, I said, well, what am I going to do? And it was in an hour, Steve, an hour. I had 1 hour to make my 10 minutes. And I said, I don't have an act. I don't know how I can do this. And they said, well, you've been making us laugh all weekend. Why don't you tell us one of your stories? Go up and tell one of the stories you told us. And they named a few, which I've turned into comedy bits since then.
Right.
And that day I happened to get a text from a person. Did you ever have this happen to you that was meant for someone else?
Of course. Yeah.
I got this text. I opened up my phone and it said, you will be my slave for the entire day. Well, first, I'm part black, so I think my people have checked that box. Two, I grew up during the women's movement. I think you got the wrong raw materials and you got the wrong number. Anyway, so I got up on stage and I read that text. I opened with that. Of course, it crushed because they were all much younger people than I was. And then I told a story about being obsessed by alien, not possessed, not abducted, possessed. When I was a kid, I was crazy for aliens, just and UFOs. And it was the time where, there was Roswell and there were all these things. There was no internet and there were
Right.
tabloids at the grocery store with, there was a picture of an alien baby, which was just a baby's head, a fat baby's body and an alien head. It was really bad, grainy black and white. And that got my attention. I was obsessed and I started having nightmares and whatever. So I got up and I told this story and it crushed. And it didn't have a lot of punchlines in it. I mean, I've shortened it and made it much better than the one I told it many times. Even recently, it's getting better all the time. But so that's how I got into comedy. So then I was like Spider-Man, and I got bit, and there was no going back. And so when I came home, I looked up comedy classes in San Diego, and there was a couple. So being the person I am, I signed up for the cheapest one. And he's sort of the godfather of comedy in San Diego, which I had no idea of knowing. And he's very similar to my husband. He's 100% Italian, very funny, very, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that he thinks I'm that funny, but he, I got time on stage. You got 10 minutes a week in front of a class, and then there's a showcase. And then I had a knee replacement in the middle of the class, so I missed 2 classes. And so on our showcase night on the stage in front of a few hundred people, I got up and I just had my knee replaced 2 weeks before that. Nobody knew. I came and I danced on stage. Nobody knew that I couldn't really walk quite, but I could dance okay. And so that was that. And here I am. And I did my first year, I was over 100 times on stage between open mics and shows, and I did anything. If somebody said, will you be on a show in a ladies' room in the airport? And I'd be like, okay, I'll be there. What time? Because I had to get stage time. And then I had some help from Honest Fox Media. Shout out to you guys. They changed my name because I told them I was afraid of the stalker. And they said, well, let's get you up there and out there and, whatever. And they said, and then I think you're going to shoot a special soon. I said, really? He said, well, you got how much time you got? What did you just tell us? I'm like, okay. So I did. I shot a special in February, and
That's great.
it was great. And it's almost done editing now. I can't say the date. I thought it would be out Mother's Day, but I should know better from working in the movies. It's never the date the editors tell you it's going to be done. Done. It isn't possible. It's like believing in Peter Pan or something. Anyway, so um, it'll be out sometime this summer. I don't know if it'll be middle end. I don't know, but that's there we go. And here I am.
Congratulations. I
Thank
I
you.
read I read a lot of what you said. Someone posted an interview that they did with you, so I knew about your 100 shows. That's amazing to get up that much in a year, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
And the special, where will it be released?
It'll be on my YouTube channel for
Great,
now. However, I think they're shopping. I think there's some other people who buy comedy specials and they produce them. Because here's the thing that I understand from being in the movies: distribution.
right.
Distribution is the key. So I look when I see myself though, I don't really like seeing myself so much. I got to tell you, I used to work when I worked in the TV on TV shows. I'd say to the actors, "Did you watch last week's episode, or did you see the dailies?" Oh no, I never watched myself. And I thought, why do they say that? They're on camera. They should watch themselves. Now I get it. Now I
Hmm.
understand. So, yeah, I'm going to work on at least another 100 this. I'm more picky about my shows. I was just up in LA for 3 different shows, and I'm a little more picky about my shows now. I was at a show last night where a bunch of motorcycles were parked outside. I mean, like 30. And in the middle of our everybody's sets, they vroom,
Yeah, I
and
was gonna say it's
it
gonna
was
get
it was
loud.
a nightmare.
Yeah,
And the pros just waited it out and then started talking. But talk about ruining your timing. Hey, yeah, yeah.
for
So
sure. Yeah,
yeah.
that's so abrupt. We had I mean, doesn't hurt when like an ice cream truck goes by or something like that here. That's always fun. But motorcycles would be
Yeah,
rough,
and these were
really
big
rough.
Harleys, and these were like sober riders or something. So they were sober, but they were still loud,
Yeah,
and it was a trip. But anyway, so I'm a little more picky now about shows, and I'm also sort of amping up a little bit. We'll see what happens when the special comes out, but I'm going to be opening for a few bigger comedians soon for featuring. So,
that's
and
great.
yeah, and I just hosted and I'll be hosting again at the end. I love hosting. I don't know why I love hosting. I like being in charge, I guess.
And that's a completely different skill. That's something that I've discussed on here before. I've hosted in the past when I've like produced my own shows, but I
Mhm.
haven't hosted as a comic yet. So that's a whole different game of like keeping the energy up, etc., on stage. So that's cool that you're doing that. I do have a question about right now. Are you kind of touring and going to different cities?
Well, I was just in Atlanta, which was probably the most humbling corporate gig I've ever had. And I don't know if you could hear about that if you want to. But anyway, I've had a couple. I have a couple of those. Um,
We'll get there.
I have a husband who is much older than I am, and so I can't just leave him. And he doesn't travel easily either. He has macular degeneration, so it's hard. He doesn't see well.
Mhm.
Not, nothing it just happens. And so I'm picking very careful spots right now. Can I go on tour? I don't know. Not unless I hire a babysitter or he gets another wife. Uh, I don't know. Maybe someone who would like a nice old guy. I don't know. A nice old guy who likes to eat. And that's sort of redundant, isn't it? Anyway, so I have some gigs set up in Texas, and I do very well in the South because they respect their elders there, and they don't freak out when a person I mean, when I show up in a San Diego club, and like at an open mic at the store, they're like, "What is my grandmother doing here?" And at another club that I do an open mic at, that's close to my house, actually, those boys love me, and I call them boys because they're 30. I don't know, they're a
Yeah,
day,
they're boys.
and they are so lovely to me. for my age, because that's a hurdle to get over. Everyone says, "Well, you act so young." Well, yeah, but look at me. I'm not, my shirt is not cut off. My tummy is not hanging out like all the other female young hot comedians are. Not doing that. I don't want to traumatize these poor people. So anyway, even though I have a six pack and I can press squat 90 pounds.
That's important. That's great.
Oh, yeah. California did that for me. When we moved to California 10 years ago, uh, my husband joked because he's a big guy, and he said, "I don't think they're going to let me in. I'm too fat." And we were in this store called Jimbo's, and we were getting some vegan something. Not that we're vegans, but we dabbled in it for a while. His doctor wanted him to do that, and he looked at me and he goes, "I'm the only fat person in line." I'm like, "He's lost 50 pounds since we moved to California, and I've done weight training for now, and it's amazing." So I'm
Where were
glad.
you coming from?
We lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico,
Okay.
and we lived in Santa Fe first. Then we moved to Albuquerque because nothing is happening in Santa Fe, and it's the city different. They call it. That's an understatement. I mean, it's a beautiful place to visit. Don't get me wrong. I visited there many years on vacation. Love, love, love it. But not if you need a doctor. There was one hospital. Now we moved to where there's, you fall out the door and there's 25 hospitals. So I think we made the right move.
That's a good move. Prior to that, so going back to like, I do want to talk about the movie business, but growing up, where were you initially? Where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Chicago.
There it is. Yeah,
Oh,
makes sense.
listen to me when I talk. People look at me here and they're like, "Oh, are you not from here?" And I don't think I have an accent, but whoever does. And yeah, I grew up. My family are generational Cubs fans. My mother went into labor with me at a Cubs game, and I was 15 minutes away from being born in Wrigley Field behind first base.
Wow.
And I was born on the sidewalk of Michigan Avenue. That's where the hospital was. There wasn't all the shopping that there is now, and in a wheelchair in front of thousands of cars driving by. And I joke, I said, "This is my special." My dad, I was that pop fly he's been waiting to catch. Right, right, coming right out of that wheelchair. And my mother, who was a neatnik, was very upset at the mess I made. But that's how, and it was pretty much the precursor to who I am. That's who I am. So I move fast. I have two speeds, off and 100 miles an hour. So I joke that if you want to know what your ADHD kid is going to look like, even though I don't have a diagnosis, when they're my age, you're looking at her. So anyway, I have one brother, and he's no longer with us. He was a Vietnam vet and
Mhm.
succumbed to Agent Orange cancer a few years. Yeah, I moved to California. He lived in California. It was a great. We had a blast. Bigler's his name. I got to do a bit on Bigler because my brother was even more of a character than I am. His idea, he used to meet me on Sundays. He'd drive down here, and we didn't even know where we were going. We'd end up sometimes at the Dell. Have you ever been to the Dell in San Diego? It's a
Yeah.
red roofed hotel, not the Red Roof Inn that's like that Hot was filmed in, and it's beautiful. It's just gorgeous. And there's a big deck that with a restaurant, and you look all over. You can see the ocean, 360. Oh, well, I don't know, not 360, but almost 300-degree views. And he'd make things up. He'd tell people he was a movie producer, or he'd tell people he was from Cincinnati and he sold shoes. And he'd say, "This is my assistant," or "This is my whatever." He'd make these things up, and we would just go along and meet people. And he was, oh my God, such a character.
That's really nice to hear. And,
Yeah,
I'm glad you had those moments with them. And so growing up in Chicago, was there a
yeah.
lot of humor and laughter in the house?
My father told jokes, three-part street jokes, from the time we woke up to the time I went. Do you think I can remember a three-part, or I can remember two of his jokes? And he told them, I mean, I should have written them down. We would watch the Tonight Show. My mother would go to sleep, and we would watch the Tonight Show, and I'd be 8, 9 years old. I'd be up till midnight. and we had this bet on what comics were going to the couch. Because if Johnny invited them, or even before that, Jack Parr invited them to the couch, he liked them. That was the
Right.
night. And so, as the guy would be doing, is usually a guy doing his routine, I'd say, no couch. My dad would say, no couch. Anyway, so I wonder what he'd say when he hears me. Uh, but
I'd
anyways,
say couch.
and my mom was pretty serious. I mean, he was so much fun. And then my brother, this was back in the dark ages. When I was 5, which is 1960, he brought home a baby chimpanzee.
From the Chicago Zoo.
Oh, a pet shop. You could buy exotic animals at pet shops back then. And his friend had brought it home first, and his mother said, "No, we're not living with the chimpanzee. You get it back." And so my brother was a real estate developer. He was always flipping something,
Mhm.
and like shopping centers and stuff. And he was going to flip this monkey because he thought, well, the guy paid 1960. He paid $1,000 for the monkey. $1,000 back then. I don't know what that is now. 10,000. But
Yeah, at least
well,
10,000. Yeah.
a pretty affluent Chicago suburb. I joke that I have resting rich face, which would make everyone thinks I'm a rich old lady. I wish I was a rich old lady. I'm just an old lady, but I have resting rich face, and so my mother, when she saw this chimpanzee when he brought it in, she said, "Lock up the cat. It's going to kill the cat. It's going to rip her faces off." And it was a baby chimpanzee with a diaper on. Anyway, he only stayed the night, and then he went back to the pet shop in the morning. And I often wonder what happened to him. Um, he was a sweetheart. Anyway, Rollo. And then we nicknamed my father Rollo. He came with that name. I don't know why that was his name, but his name was Rollo.
Okay.
My father would get this big-eyed look on his face sometimes, and my brother would look over at me and say, "Rollo." And of course, that would just make us laugh. Or we'd see somebody acting a fool someplace, and my brother would go, "Rollo." So, and he was funny too. We'd go see comedians together all the time when
Nice.
here. It was
Who do
nice.
you remember seeing?
Let's see. We went to see up at the Comedy and Magic. We went to see Jay Leno. We went to see Bill Burr. We went to see Andrew Dice Clay, which is right up my brother's alley. Mine. I prefer a Nate Bargatze, Leanne Morgan. I prefer clean comedy. I don't want my head to jerk back when I'm sitting in a seat. I don't know. But he liked the wild stuff. So yeah.
That's nice. I'm sorry, I didn't, more modern stuff. So that's happening now. When you were a kid, you obviously had the Tonight Show and Carson, Jack Parr, as you said. But like, do you remember like really being invested in anything beyond
Oh,
that?
oh
Yeah.
yeah. Jonathan Winters. I had Jonathan Winters records as
Oh
a kid.
yeah.
And my friend happened to live next door to him in Santa Barbara for a few years. And he would call him up on the phone and just have the phone uh, not say anything, not tell Jonathan Winters, and we'd just talk to him. He was like that in real life. This is let's see who else. Bill Cosby. Went to see Bill
Hmm.
Cosby. He was funny. He just
Yeah.
you know I mean, it seems to be something about that. But anyway, who else did I see? Joan Rivers, Phyllis Diller. Um, we're talking old
Yeah.
comics. Jackie Gleason and Art Carney. My father loved the Honeymooners, and he would every time he signed my report card, he
Oh
would do the
yeah.
Carney thing.
My father's a few years younger than you, and he's a big like honeymooners guy. Like loved
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
loved it. Yeah.
My husband grew up in the Honeymooners apartment. He grew up in one room in Brooklyn. I mean, the
Wow.
Honeymooners had a bedroom. He didn't have a
Yeah.
bedroom. I mean, he grew up third floor of a walk up, an attic of a house.
Wow.
And, it didn't even have a bathroom. He had to go downstairs to his aunt and uncle's house to go to the bathroom. I know. I have my own bedroom. He said to me, "I've never had my own bedroom in my whole life." He still doesn't.
That room probably rents out for like 7 grand a month now. So, I mean,
No, they knocked that house down and they
uh,
built a giant house. So
yeah.
anyway, it was a pretty big house to start with, but it needed so much repair. Anyway, so yeah, so I grew up in Chicago, in the Chicago suburb. My mother bought a gift shop when I was 11. I was very, very shy. I know that's hard to believe, but I was. I have a report card here that says Susie hasn't said a word all quarter. And then my mother bought the store, and I had to wait on people. here I was 11 years old waiting on people. I was trimming her windows. I was an adult basically.
Right.
And, but I wasn't shy after that. I learned, you know, I
I
wasn't that shy.
think there's instances I can relate to that of being shy until like my teenage years, and my first job was at a bowling alley in my neighborhood. So rough crowd,
You
you know. So
do at a bowling alley.
what did I do? Kind of like everything, but it was the weird story is, and I should try and figure this out for an act. Like our elementary school had a bowling alley under it. It was it's not there was like
Yours?
there was a couple in Philly, and Catholic schools often use these bowling alleys as like ways to make money for the parish, and it's
Oh,
yeah.
we
So
should go
there's
back to that.
yeah. They need all they can get at this point.
Yep.
But yeah, I worked there through high school and college, but I remember a friend saying to me, he's like, this job makes you like it forces you to talk to people. And
Hmm.
then and also to your point about like being quiet, I would expect from what you said earlier that you were kind of like talks too much in class. But
Not till
you're
high school.
what's that?
Not till high
Not
school.
till
Like
high school.
high school.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think some of us who are maybe more naturally shy in conversation are more comfortable on stage. Have you seen that? Like maybe not for yourself, but amongst other people.
You know, I I'm really confident on stage. I don't know how this could be because I think 20 years ago I would have, pooped my pants. I would
Hmm.
not be comfortable at all. But I see that a lot. I hear comedians talk about it, and I realized the other day, I have a son on the spectrum, and I'm not on the spectrum, but I have a hard time with small talk. I hear like Larry David talk about that, or other people talk. I think that, yeah, like what do I say? Okay, hi, but that's enough.
Yeah. And not to turn this back to me again, but my career has been in nonprofit fundraising. So there's a
Oh,
lot of small talk, a lot of cocktail parties, that kind of thing. And
yeah,
and people are surprised that I go kind of deep, like 5 minutes into meeting them. Like, I mean, if I want to get to know you, I want to get to know you. Like, and I think if you can make people feel comfortable, then that comes
yeah.
out. But yeah, small talk is, ugh, it's awful.
I know. And then, I hang around with a bunch of comedians. If you're waiting to go on a show, everybody's thinking about their set. They're thinking about all
Right.
that stuff. So they don't want to talk. We don't want to talk to anybody.
No.
And they'll say, "Oh, can so and so come in the green room?" I'm like, "No, they can't." And
Mhm.
we need to figure out what we're doing. And for me, my age, I am taking a supplement because of Joe Rogan, of all people. It's a memory
Alpha
supplement.
brain.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I
I've listened
started.
to a Joe Rogan episode or two. So
Yes. Oh, he has a guest on I like.
I
I'll listen. Otherwise, I
of
can't.
course. It's all
But
the guest.
anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. And so yeah, so he talked about that, and so about I don't know 3 weeks ago, I think I started taking it, and I see a huge difference. So I don't know if it's a placebo effect, but I highly recommend it because I would get up. I went. You're gonna laugh at this. I went up. I went. And I was doing a joke I have done so many times. I've done it 100 times at least. And I forgot my own punchline and went on to the next joke and then realized later and I blanked out on stage a couple times just and I don't really pause. Nobody knows it, but I know it. I can pretend to talk about something else while I'm thinking of something
Hmm.
else. And so I thought, I wonder if I have memory problems. So I went when I had my physical, I said, I asked her, she says, "Oh, let me take you down the hall. My friend's a neurologist. He'll give you a test." So I take this test and I get 100%. And the neurologist says to me, "Has anyone ever mentioned you might have ADD?" I said, "Yeah, think." And I said, "They didn't have that when I was a kid." Now
Right.
everyone has a diagnosis, which I'm doing a whole thing about this. We used to just call it a personality.
Hmm. I like that. Everyone at this point is on the spectrum or has ADHD. And I know for women, there is you're usually diagnosed later in life.
Yeah.
Um, it
Oh, yeah.
because yeah, it's odd that that's not picked up on when you're younger, and even when I was a kid, it was usually boys. It's like get that kid some Ritalin. That was kind
Yeah.
of how it was.
Right.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, what about giving me not Ritalin? What's the other one? Adderall."
Adderall, yeah.
It looks like it sell those, but no. I said, "What about Adderall?" To sell Adderall. Don't anyone get all upset. Anyway, no one's even offered me a drug in a club so far. Not one drug. Everybody else has doing God knows what, but do they offer them to me? Never. Um, and I said, well, what about Adderall? He said, well, usually at your age, we don't like to give it to the people. It could just interfere with your heart or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay. I aged out of that too.
You're not
So,
missing much. I don't like Adderall when I have taken it and I'm not
right?
prescribed it. So I don't really,
Okay.
I haven't enjoyed it a few times. I've used it to write, and the best way I could explain it is it almost feels like a piece of your brain's missing. Like when you come down, I'm also pretty sensitive to like actual pharmaceuticals. So,
Me too.
yeah, I didn't like it. I saw someone in the area does a bit of like, there's we have a cure for ADHD. It's just taking meth every day, something like that.
Yeah, at meth or yeah, yeah. They there's a lot of stuff going around now that, I thought I grew up in the summer of love when we invented drugs, we thought. Oh no, now there are, drugs. Wait, pot is so strong now. And not that I don't ever take it. I do, but I'm the one hit wonder.
Yeah,
That's me.
it is a
What
lot stronger than it was even for my generation. Yeah.
I mean, I see people at your clubs, they're puffing on the thing outside I'm like, how do you even talk?
It-
Let alone drive. How do you drive home? I know. I'm
Do you have a problem with like, not a problem, but do you feel like going up on stage not sober is a bad idea, or like maybe for you specifically?
For me specifically,
Yeah,
yes. Never been on stage and had anything.
yeah.
Never. And I'm not a drinker. I never have been a drinker. I grew up with drinkers and never looked attractive to me. There always this chalk line, and I thought, well, nobody ever sees that coming until they step over it.
Mm,
Uh, and then, I lived through the 80s. Everyone was doing cocaine. I didn't like any of that stuff. That
sure.
was somebody tapping me on the shoulder all the time. And no, I'm getting a whole bunch of pictures. My son just got married last weekend, and his wife is sending me a zillion pictures, and it comes up on my computer. How do I
And I meant to say congratulations to you. I know that's why we rescheduled because of your son's wedding.
MIL? I'm a mother-in-law, and I was told at the wedding I'm a MILF. You know what a MILF is?
I know what a MILF is.
And my husband says, "What is that?" And when he heard it, he goes, "Oh my God." Anyway, they kept telling my son, "Your mom is hot. She's fun. She's whatever." We're all black, and I wore black patent leather combat boots, going
That's a great
all
look.
great look. Anyone said to me, I looked like I just got off the Milan runway. I said, "Yeah, that's my figure too. I look just like that." But anyway, so yeah, so I don't ever do that. I see people get up there and that are really. I see a lot of people that are really. I think comedians are either just got out of rehab or they're on their way, and
Mm,
I see a lot of that. But I want to say to them, take it from somebody who's been around everything you can imagine. Your best self is not when you're loaded out of your brains. You'll be funnier if you can sober up. But artists feel that if they don't have that, they won't be talented, they won't be funny, or they won't play music well, or they won't, and it's just not true. It's just not true. But they'd have to get used to it. And
yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, I got up after I was at an open mic once, and the guy before me was so drunk. He didn't when his name was called, he got up and he couldn't even get on the stage, so he sat on the edge of the stage, and he looked
Wow.
down and thought, "Well, this is going well." And, he said, "I'm just too high. I'm just too drunk. I gotta go." And he got up, and I
Mm.
was like, "That's good." So, I feel bad when I see that. I just wanna, hand him a AA pamphlet or something. I don't know. Help
No,
him
I
out.
know it's tough because I think you don't want to be like preachy, and I'll have a drink from time to time, but performing, it's different.
It
Like
is.
it's very different, and I've been on stage drunk, and I don't have to tell my story. I probably cut this out, but I've had those moments of being like when I would listen back to a recording several years ago before I was consistently doing comedy. I'm like, I can hear myself slurring. It's like, am I just going out to drink, or am I actually trying to do something here? I think that's where people blur that line.
And that's the difference between, I see people who are still imbibing to the point of being disabled, I would say.
Yeah.
And I don't want to preach to them. I mean, I want them to have fun. God, I don't want to be the fun police.
Hmm.
But I've look at them and I think you can't see you the way I see you right now. I wish you could, like you said, listen to yourself. But they're not serious about comedy yet. When you see people get serious about comedy, you see a whole different, uh, you see them at mics constantly. You see them knocking it out, taping themselves, doing.
Mhm.
And so if they're taping themselves, they see what they look like, and that's a whole different animal.
Yeah,
The
you're right
guy
about
getting
that.
an open mic who's been drinking all night. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
certainly see a lot of those. That's all right.
This tends to come up a lot. This topic, the other topic would kind of be. I mean, you told your story at the beginning of really getting into comedy, being encouraged by other people. Were there any other? Was there another impetus for you to pursue comedy beyond like knowing you were funny? Beyond that encouragement, is there a personal story there or anything that you maybe was like internal driving you to do
Well,
that?
internal is that I started comedy at 69,
Mm.
which when I was your age, I thought would be a much more fun age. It ended up it was, just in another way. And how much time do I have? How long can I do this? That's my internal clock. I hear people say their biological clock is ticking.
Right.
Well, it's down the road. I see what's coming. My parents were very healthy, very active people for their ages. So I hope I have some of that. Um, and so I don't feel like I have a lot of time. And I feel like the only thing I regret is that I didn't do it sooner. I wish I had done it sooner, but it is what it is. And but so I don't have a lot of time. So I'm knocking it out. I'm going to tape another special in about 13 months, and I'm going to keep taping them. And
That's great.
we'll see. We'll see if they get better. I hope so.
I love that you're goal setting and you're public about it and you're just so committed. I think people need to listen to you and hear your story because we'll get to like the closeout question of like your younger self, et cetera. But I think the life's too short. It comes up all the time. I
Right.
think that's the reason why I am doing this now. I feel like turning 40 and experiencing some like losses and already having dabbled in this world a decade ago and feeling like, why did I shelve it? You know, what do I really want to do? And for me, this could be a springboard to other forms of art. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's a pretty consistent theme. I didn't mean to like trail off there. But I appreciate
No,
you sharing that.
I understand. 40 is a big birthday. I was a mother, and so 40 wasn't. I wasn't. I was a mother, and I had two kids at that time, and I was very. I have one. The one on the spectrum was keeping me very busy.
Hmm.
So at 40, I was. At 40, he was 8, and that was whew. That was a lot. And so I wasn't really, it wasn't a big deal for me. But my other friends who didn't have kids, or their kids had normal kids or whatever, it was a hard birthday for them. I think 60 was a hard birthday
Okay.
for me. And I decided to do a year-long project, a 365 project, and I carried a skeleton around the world with me, not a real one, a plastic one, Samantha. So I could pose her in any position, and I took a picture of her every day and put it on my blog. And I've been encouraged to turn it into a coffee table book. I didn't think anybody else would want this, but apparently they do. So that's also on the horizon this year to complete that book.
I think that's great. I think there's an audience for everything, and just having our little 3 minutes before we started this, and hearing you, and again, I keep saying I want to get into your career, and we will, but you're an artist. I mean, at heart, you are truly an artist, and always have been. And I think what comedy allows us all to do is just get to that basic form of expression that we
Mhm.
all want to get out there, and then it's an accessible form of art, and at least we can do it whenever we want to while we work on these other projects. At least that's kind of how I see it.
I agree. And I still I my our business I hired someone to do half my job because I couldn't do it all. I mean, I was running a big business. And so I hired a guy, and he's doing a great job, and I love him. He's Italian boy, another Italian boy.
You're just
I
surrounded by Italians.
I can't get away from him. I like people. I like Mediterraneans. I kind of I was not a stranger to Greeks either. Anyway, that's another story for another.
But we have
But
great food all around. All
it, I speak Greek
oh, great.
because my first husband was well, I can't say his name, but
Okay.
I had to go to Greek school and become Greek Orthodox. And
Really?
I've had to change my religion and be baptized many times. I say I've been sprinkled, sprayed, dunked, and damn near drowned. And then I found out I was half Jewish. No wonder I had such a problem with all that. So, yeah. Yeah. So I learned to speak Greek. I went to Greek school. And
Okay.
then when I left Chicago, there's no Greeks anywhere. Like Chicago is a huge Greek population. And I lived my big fat Greek wedding, basically. I did. That was my
Wow.
life. Oh, yeah. And I did a whole thing about, I used to do this whole Greek bit about the Greeks anyway. People don't get it here. I tried to do my Greek accent here, and nobody got it. Years ago, I was at Second City in some workshops there, and I did a bit about we got two kinds of ice cream: a black and a white prune juice, cheesecake, apple pie, coconut custard, hamburger bun with shoes to go. And nobody touches the register, not even my wife. And that is a Greek restaurant. And
Yeah.
when we go to Atlanta, I go to a Greek restaurant in town. There's my favorite one in Marietta. It's a diner, and I anyone I can speak Greek with because I have no one to speak Greek with. So anyway, but people don't get it here. I try to do it here. People are like, "What is she doing?" They don't understand how spot on that accent is. If you don't know Greeks, well,
No, yeah, yeah, I get it. That's the interesting thing about California. Like, I haven't spent much time there, but it's so different from the East Coast. It's not necessarily for
oh,
me. But
oh.
what do you feel like? How would you define maybe the comic sensibility of the populace there?
Well, it's a big difference between San Diego and LA. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
Uh, San Diego is very provincial. It's very provincial.
Hmm.
It really is. I'm amazed at what it's. I don't know. It's provincial is the best way to describe it. When you go up to LA, you hear. Well, first of all, I saying anything about being Jewish in San Diego is not a safe place to be. I cannot. I have a couple bits about Santa Claus being Jewish and some other things, and doesn't fly. But if I do it in LA, it kills.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but the San Diego aspect really surprises me. Is that more recently with like
Yes.
anti-Semitism? Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I've it's not good. And so I'm not stupid. I'm not just for comedy purposes, but for my safety. I'm not going to do anything anymore. So, but anyway, but then then I go to Dallas, and I do well in Texas. I love Southern comics, and I have one coming to stay with me. Her name is JJ Barrow. She's going to be performing with. She started out in San Diego, but she's from the South, and I everyone I love and hang out with all have Southern accents, but me. I don't know what that is. And I have a voice in my head that I learned because of doing comedy. I sit in with myself a little bit every day just to hear what percolates. I try to not go do anything, just sit, and which is not my nature. And I found out I have these voices in my head, and I don't mean telling me to drive to the Kmart parking lot and park for 3 days. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking thinking. And my cautionary voice is my housekeeper I grew up with, who is a Black woman from Mississippi. And she says things like, "Well, I don't think you should take 20 milligrams of edibles before your son's wedding. I think that's a bad idea for the mother of the groom." And I realize that the voices have dialects. And then when I've done something that I messed up or didn't go well, it's a Jewish voice, a Jewish mother. And she says, "I told you not to do that. You never listen to me." And I hear them now, and I'm writing down what they're telling me, just because I think it's good for bits.
It's
But
definitely good for bits. I like that. I really
yeah,
like that.
and it's a great callback thing because when I tell on myself, then I can have the Jewish mother, or I can have the other one. And I think our housekeeper who grew up, I didn't know that I was 10% black, but she used to tell me, "You got the nappiest hair for the white girl." I'm white, that's why. So makes sense.
It all comes together.
It
Uh,
also together. Okay, where do we go? I digressed. I'm
no,
sorry.
no, that's okay. I'm laughing. I was going to say on the Texas note, two of my guests, I do this by myself, and I keep saying our, like it's like I have this big production. But so Kevin Kirkland and Darcy Chris are two clean, that they work clean. If you
Mhm.
check out their episodes, so they might be people you cross paths with in Dallas. They're both in Dallas. I can relate to the differences of the advice of going to a different city, and even in Pennsylvania, going to a different town, like going an hour outside of Philadelphia. You
I
may
bet.
as well be in Virginia. I mean, or somewhere. I mean, it's insane. Like last night, I was at a really nice. It was a nice room. It was just basically all comics, but it's one of those times where like the comics like you, but I think it's hard to get laughs out of comics. You get a lot of
Oh,
like
they're
that
open
was
mic.
at open mic. It's like, oh yeah, lots of fist bumps after. It's like, guys, I need some laughter on my on my tapes, but yeah.
So they don't. And I know comics who won't go to open mics because their egos, they can't take it.
Mm.
They can't take it. And I'm thick skinned. I don't care. How else am I going to work out this material if I don't get up and do it? And but they don't laugh. You're right. Comics are just, or if they laugh, there's that pity laugh.
There's
They
some of
do that.
that.
Yeah, I hear that every now and then. I'm sitting out there and if somebody's laughing next to me, I think, yeah, I don't think he means that. And
Yeah, yeah.
you want to support your friends, and I have some really nice comics that I've met early on that I try to support. In fact, I'm going to go to a show to Saturday night in Lemon Grove, which is an hour from my house, but two of my female comic friends are going to be on the show. So, and the lady who
Nice.
runs the show, I love her. So, but yeah, it's tough to get comics to laugh, and it's tough. As I said, between San Diego and LA, I haven't gone to Orange County, which is what's in between. I imagine I might do okay in Orange County, but there's only Long Beach, and Long Beach is. I don't know. Have you ever been to Long Beach?
No,
I'm,
no.
I've been hammered for this, but that's where probably most of the open mics or most of the comedy shows are, and they're not real clubs or anything. So we have some good clubs here, though. We got a lot of good clubs here. I'll be at National Lampoon's Yellow Door at the end of August.
Oh,
I'll be
cool.
show there. I'm excited to go there.
That'll be a lot of fun. I'm sure. Yeah.
Yes, I'm trying to step it up. Trying to do clubs. I try to only do open mics now at clubs. That's
Okay.
what comics.
Yeah, that's what I
Right.
have to start doing. Clubs. I mean, I'm like less than a year in myself, but we have two clubs here in Philly, and then one in the burbs, but also Jersey has a lot. Uh,
It does have a lot. You're right.
yeah, all the stress factories are here.
Mhm.
And now there's one in Pennsylvania too. But this is turning into like inside baseball small talk, but that's okay. I don't want to just
I love
pontificate on that.
that. I love it. Of course, I could talk comedy forever. I've been a comedy nerd my whole life, and I still am.
That's
So,
great. I mean, that's why I like having these conversations because it eventually gets into that. What do you find is like, I mean, obviously you're outgoing. That probably comes naturally to you. What do you find is like a difficult part of the business aspect of this, or the most difficult part for you?
well, you probably know this, but I'll say this: there are bringer clubs, and there are not bringer clubs.
Yep.
And for a bringer club, if I'm going up to LA, I hardly know anyone in LA, and I don't know many people here. And the only people I know are comics here, and they don't want to go spend the money to go to a club. Most of them don't have the money, so I have a hard time with the bringer clubs. I know I've listened to so many comics. That's where they got their starts, you know. So, but I have a hard time with that business model. But I will tell people who are new at this, and I say this to all my young comics that I meet. I was told by my managers that you might be a comedian. You might think you're funny. You might be doing 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but what your job is to sell tickets.
Mm.
You are a ticket seller. And if you can't fill those seats and put butts in those seats, and you don't have social media, you need the two things together, forget it. You're going no place. You could be talented, you could be the smartest person in the world, but you better know that you got to fill those seats. So, back to bringer clubs. I have a problem with how they feed on people. I've watched people who grew up here, who have tons of people, and they keep bringing their friends, but their friends have come to so many of their shows now. They're done. And
Yes.
then where are they? So my suggestion was do the open mics at the clubs that aren't bringer clubs, and just keep going until eventually they're going to pass you. They're going to give you a spot somewhere. They're going to call you, if you're good enough. But
Yeah.
you gotta do it. The other hard part is everyone says, "How long have you been doing this?" And I said this on another interview, and I'll hear 20 years, and they're still in San Diego. And I'm thinking, well, maybe they're doing it part time. Maybe they aren't really serious about this. But time has nothing to do with it. Okay, everybody starts out, they suck. But in a few years, if you haven't got it dialed in by then,
Right.
either you should be in the short bus or you've got an alcohol drug problem or I don't know what. But and I have a whole lifetime, so I've worked so I do have that in behind me that a young person doesn't have. I've had so many experiences. I've been so many, you have no idea. Just in the movies alone, I had so many experiences. But anyway, but I have a hard time with people immediately judging you if you haven't been doing it as long as they have. But then I see them in the same place and I'm like, well, where are you going with this? I mean, if I was single and been doing it 20 years, I'd be on the road. I'd be wanting to do tour. I mean, isn't that what you do? I don't know.
Exactly.
And I just see, I don't know, I see so much of that. And I don't know if it's just San Diego and LA, you make it or you don't. I think it's a lot quicker.
Mm.
I think a lot of people are hanging out that aren't good enough to be, it's a tough game. And I do I have to tell you, I was in LA for the show and across the street was Paramount Studios. And I've been there many times. But in front of Paramount Studios, there were three robotic weed dealers. They were in those little vehicles. I don't know what they are. They're about the height of a kid's bicycle, and they're square, and they deliver food in them, and they
Oh
also
yeah, we have some of those. Yeah.
they also deliver weed in them, which I thought was great because they're not going to rob you. They're not going to take some off the top. They're not going to get stoned and not show up. I mean, that's perfect. and but anyway, so
That's the
that's
only justification that I've heard that's good for the robots so far. It's as to sell weed. That's not really taking too many jobs away. Yeah,
that'd be better than any drug dealer. I'll tell you that.
that's true.
Worst anyone's I ever met. So anyway,
So let's just chat on that for a minute of like your movie business experience. So I've honestly, I that was always the dream for me to get into the movie business, and I think now it's like I've waited a long time to get really into the arts. Maybe this is where to go. What took you from Chicago to Hollywood? And
I didn't go to Hollywood, and I'll
okay,
tell you, I was teaching. I'm a master printmaker, and I was teaching art in Florence, Italy, for a summer course for adults. And one of my students was from LA, from Hollywood, and she said to me about the third day, she was a great gal, crazy gal. She said she had this kind of gravel voice. Susie, you'd be a great costumer. You live in New Mexico now. They have a film program coming there. I'm moving there. I'm going to hire you. I'm like, no, I don't think so. Yeah, I know what to wear and I have style because I've always had style. I mean, I've always, wherever I go, at my kid's wedding, they were all over me about what I had on. Everybody. My husband was like, enough. He goes places with me. People stop me in the street and ask me, where did you get that? How, I love your style. Every day. It happens every day.
well, my girlfriend commented on your Instagram.
Really?
I was like, "This is who I'm interviewing." She's like, "She's got great style," and she does as well. So I was
Thank you. Good.
so you know.
One of my heroes, Iris Apfel, said, "You're either born with it or you're not." And I believe I was born with it. My first pair of favorite shoes were red cowboy boots for my costume, my Halloween costume that I wore until I couldn't get my growing feet into them anymore. And my mother was very happy about that. But anyway, um, so I lived in New Mexico, and sure as shooting, Lynn called me when the summer was over, and I was back, and she said, "I got a show in Roswell. Come down to Roswell." Not Roswell. Is it Roswell? No, it's not Roswell. It's southern New Mexico, Clovis, New Mexico.
Okay.
Sorry. Although I do love Roswell. Uh, Clovis, New Mexico. And she said, we're doing a guerrilla indie basketball, a vintage basketball, and I need, come down here. And I said, yeah, but I'm not in the union or anything. She said, yeah, we'll sneak in and you get as many days as you can in and you're going to learn whatever and we'll get your apply for the union. So I went online, I applied for the union. I had my husband drop off my application and I drove to Clovis, New Mexico, one of the most stinky places in the world. They have all these feedlots and all the animals come through there that are going to slaughter. Very sad
Yeah.
place. Anyway, and I worked on this show for about 10 days, and they kept calling me to set. I was working in a wardrobe trailer. I was dressing 800 extras a day.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And she said to me, and I read the script that night in bed when I got there the first night I arrived, and I asked her questions about changing clothes or whatever. And she said, "Oh, you're smart too. Good." I said, "Well, it's a 120 pages. It's a script. It's this is like really reading 10 pages of a book." And so she said, "No, but you're figuring this out." I said, "Well, I'm trying to think of what are they wearing the same thing as earlier in the day or whatever?" I said, "How do you just don't worry, it'll all be tagged, it'll all be marked." I said, "Okay." So I did that, and then about 10 days in there, I was on the set one day bringing something to set, which that they should never have sent me to set because everyone on the crew knows everyone. And you walk on a set, and if you're not one of them, I mean, they know it. So anyway, I dropped something off and set. It came back, and pretty soon this woman comes to the wardrobe trailer, and she said, "Is there a Susan in here?" I said, "Yeah, who wants to know?" She says, "I'm head of the union. Get out of here. You don't have a union
Yeah.
card." I said, "Well, can I get my purse and whatever?" And I said, "Am I being arrested? What's going on?" So I'm walking up. She's walking me to my car, and she says, "I heard you're really good." I said, "Yeah, I put in an application." She said, "We're going to push your application through. You'll be working in a month. Don't worry." And I worked nonstop, and I worked on a lot of TV, and a lot of TV, and I never had planned to be in the movies. Unlike you, it never occurred to me in a million years. And I loved the days we had stunts or we had action things or stuff like that. That was the fun part. I didn't want to be in a wardrobe trailer. I hated being a supervisor. I hated being in meetings with producers. Oh, talk about the dregs of the earth. Anyway, producers. And so
I know what you mean.
yeah. And so I love working the set. That was my favorite thing. And so I would, if any job I could have, even though it was hard, it was talking about schlepping. But I loved it. And I loved working directly with the actors. And I love watching the movies be made. I mean, why work in it if and being in an office? Didn't say, "Oh, I worked on that movie." No, I like to. What can I tell you? I called myself a rag picker. I would, that's really my job title. I was a professional lint roller. One time I had to roll in New Mexico in the cottonwoods would like snow on everything for about a week every year. And these white feathery things, they had a dead horse and the cottonwoods were shedding all over it. And of course, every take was looking different. So we had to roll the horse, which was not my department, but I did it anyway to get the cottonwood seeds off of the dead horse. It was not dead, really. It was just a fake horse. But anyway, um, so that's how I got into it. I didn't plan on it. Like I told you, I never planned on any of my jobs. They just sort of found me, and it was okay. But it took a toll. It took a toll. So about 10 years. I did it for about 10 years, and then I was like, that was it. I was done.
Okay.
So,
And
and I had a
you,
lot of fun. And I met, a very person who I love. I hope she listens to this, Jen Padalecki. She's married to Jared Padalecki, who she was the lead in Wildfire. She was the number one on the call sheet. And which means is your schedule for the day is a call sheet in the movies. That that,
yeah,
but
yeah, that's fine.
everybody knows that. And she met Jared Padalecki, who was the star of Supernatural, and married him, and they got 3 kids, and I don't know if they lived happily ever after, but I'm still in touch with her. Anyway, um, so and I worked with Dennis Hopper, who was my last show I worked on was Crash with him,
Oh,
and
cool.
I called him the Bunny. He never had a nickname. I was the first person to give him a nickname, and they kept calling him Hopper, and it just sounded so cold. Anyway, and he and I had a love of art, and we would read the New York Times art section together on set on Monday mornings. We would each go through something, and we had opinions about it. And I would bring art books. He would bring art books. He ended up giving me lovely photos. He was a great photographer, and he gave me a couple photos I have of his, and wrote a wonderful thing in a book of his photos that from a show he had. I don't know. He had a show. Right. I mean, I'm telling you, this man was prolific with his photography, and he used to call me his future ex-wife. And I told him I wasn't going to ruin our relationship by screwing him. And he told my husband that to his face.
That's great.
He loved us. He loved that we were both creative and worked not in corporate jobs or whatever. That
Yeah.
he loved that about it. He said he's such a, and we used Bob's knife in the show, and so that was fun. He
That's
was
all really.
yeah. And I don't think another person could have handled being his costumer that was there, because you needed someone mature I'd heard it all.
Hmm.
At one time he was rolling a joint on my kitchen, you know, counter, and nobody smoked dope in my conservative husband's house. Well, except his wife. And but I didn't smoke in the house. And he came in to our house, and here's Dennis rolling a joint, and I literally saw him stop, and I could see the wheels turning. Do I tell an icon he cannot roll a joint and smoke in my house? And then I just saw him go, well, what? So he did. He did.
Nice.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I love the bunny.
The
So
bunny. I like that. I like that. Now I wish I was quicker. What was his character in Easy Rider? What was his name?
I
It
don't
was
know his name, but
yeah, it
his
was Captain America.
company, yeah, kept. I don't know what it was. He didn't think much of that or what he got the award for, the Palme d'Or for. He didn't think much of those movies. He said we were so high and stoned and tripping and whatever. He thought they were just garbage. He can't believe he got such recognition for that. And he said he was really well. Blue Velvet. I loved him in Blue Velvet.
Oh yeah, Blue Velvet was fantastic.
Yeah,
He's a maniac in that. But
yeah,
to the point of well, to his point in Easy Rider, I remember film professors said that like to our class that Bonnie and Clyde stands the test of time because it's not set in the period like it represents the 60s in a different way than Easy Rider does.
yeah.
Easy Rider is very, very specific that, I have a young woman I work with, she's 25 and didn't know what Woodstock was. So, there's,
Someone, you mean Snoopy's friend?
what's that?
That little bird, Snoopy's friend. They said
Oh
you didn't.
yeah, Woodstock. Yeah, yeah, yeah. True. Yeah. So different world. So we've also established on this podcast,
Oh, okay, I'm of the age. I don't have any porn on my phone. I have no porn on my phone. There's a divider as far as age
there's a
goes.
divider. Um, but I might be closer to Gen Z on that one. But we said that the millennials, I've talked to a few people that say like boomers and millennials, we do have a specific kind of bond, and I'm trying to figure that thread out. I think it was Nick at Night. Like my generation was watching your shows, and now
Yes,
these kids are watching what like was on TV when I was a kid. And like they
right.
consider those the old shows, and I was like, oh,
Yeah,
that's the dividing line there. But
that's nothing. And I was a boomer, but they changed it. Now I'm a Jones, Generation Jones.
I didn't
It's
hear that yet.
1955 to 55 to 65 because we were keeping up with the Joneses. We were the highest achieving, best living of all the boomers. So
Oh.
I didn't know they changed it one day. I thought, who's Jones? And they said, oh, keeping up with the Joneses. So now I'm a Jones.
Okay, I learned something new today. I didn't hear that yet. Okay.
Oh, when I used to say I'm jonesing for something, that meant I wanted something.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
So maybe they want us. I don't know.
Ma- Um, I don't want to keep you too long. I appreciate being on the press tour here for can I say the name of your special?
The name of my special? Yeah.
Is Late Life Crisis, right?
Life crisis, because
Okay.
you say I'm having one.
So I mean, I want to make that the episode title. I'll talk about that before we put this
Yeah.
out. Um, but the question that I really ask everyone at the end of each episode is, what do you think your younger self would say to you about your decision to pursue stand-up comedy?
My younger self. Well, she was pretty shy. So I don't know how young you want to go.
You could go back to 25, you could go back to the teenage years, wherever you want to define that. Yeah.
Well, what would she say? She would say, "Oh no, you're too shy. You can't do it. You can't speak in front of people. You can't even read out loud in school. How are you going to do that?" But I also think that I was also a huge risk taker, even at a young age. So she might say, "Wet your pants, but do it anyway."
Nice.
Okay, that's kind
Yeah.
of. graphic, but anyway,
That's all right.
so yeah.
This this has really been fun. You've lived a lot of life. I think we have more stories to hear from you in
Oh, boy,
future
yeah.
podcasts. Yeah.
But the special has some of them. We didn't well, I taped a 45-minute special, but we only kept about 30 minutes of it,
Okay.
because no one has an attention span anymore, and it'll be cut up into a million pieces. And but yeah, I have lots of stories. Recently, a big thing, the Steven Spielberg movie. Did you see Disclosure Day?
Disclosure, I haven't seen it yet. No.
Not the best Spielberg in my opinion. Sorry, Steven, but I was obsessed at that time of the movie with aliens and with UFOs, and so it nailed all those things. My You want to see my bedroom growing up? Go see that movie. Looks
Okay.
exactly. I thought I was in my bedroom.
Wow.
Oh yeah, unbelievable. My husband
You're
was.
gonna have to go on Joe Rogan now just to talk about aliens. You have to.
I know. And I lived in New Mexico, which a lot of people have been abducted who lived there. I never met people who'd been abducted before, and I've met hundreds of them. And they keep saying, "Were you abducted?" I'm like, "No, not at all. I'm waiting. I'm hoping. Not
Well, it's,
yet."
that's also funny, and I know this is lore and it's on other podcasts and stuff, but because of all the nuclear testing and like after the bombs were dropped, isn't that when they say people started to see UFOs more? So that the Me New Mexico makes sense, and I know about Area 51 and oh well, that's Nevada, right? So, but
Yeah,
yeah, Roswell, yeah,
Roswell.
sorry.
I went to Roswell's 50th anniversary, not knowing what to expect. There was a parade, and everyone, the costumes were phenomenal. And I had not moved to New Mexico yet, but I did meet a group of people who they had meetings of these abductees. Um, I've heard that's true. However, I'm there's been a lot of alien or a lot of unexplained things. Um, we didn't have the technology to document them. They were written about, but we didn't have any pictures, or nobody could take a video. Or now if they show up, we're ready with our phones. I'm
True,
waiting.
true.
And a lot of it was, when I was growing up, there was My Favorite Martian, Lost in Space, which they brought back Lost in Space. There were all kinds of movies and TV shows about this, and
Yeah, that was
was
big in your era. Yeah.
yeah, a lot. And I don't know if they're there, and I certainly don't think it's just us.
No, I don't think so either. But what do you think about the take on them living in the ocean? What's your take on that?
I've heard that. You know, Anything's possible. There are things that I see today that I thought I would never see in my life. So, it could be possible. There was a big earthquake today in the whole Pacific Rim. There was a huge earthquake. And we have kids who live in Guatemala, and we have friends who live in Japan, and friends who live. I mean, we have friends all over the world.
hmm
A lot of Pacific Rim friends, and there was a huge and everywhere on the Pacific Rim. So if they're down there, maybe they were, bowling, or I don't know what they were doing down there if they were in the ocean, but things got shook up.
Yeah, I
So
did see that today. Someone I know mentioned friends in Venezuela.
right,
Yeah,
Venezuela,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Venezuela didn't have enough problems. They had this today.
I know.
In Guatemala, it shakes. I've been there. It shakes constantly.
Mm.
I couldn't live like that. And they say that here the earthquakes are bad. LA, there, I've never had anything hardly at all. Uh, I mean, there've been earthquakes, but things rattle a little bit and it's over. In San Diego, no, there's been
hmm
one in 10 years.
I feel like that was more of a thing when I was a kid. I would hear about that California earthquake so much. I mean, I guess because of the late '80s in San Francisco and what have you. But
Wasn't it going to fall
uh,
into the ocean? And
yeah,
yeah.
right.
So
The tectonic plates or whatever they teach us in elementary school.
yeah,
So,
but on my social media feed, I have lots of sharks that are in San Diego swimming near the beach, whatever. Now that I know that they're really there, and I once tried to go surfing when I first moved here, and there were like dolphins and stuff brushing up against me, and seals. I'm like, oh, I never thought about this part about being out here. Why didn't I ever think about sharks? And what if the dolphins by mistake thought I was a fish? I mean, I don't think they're malicious, but I never had any. I had no idea until I tried to surf how many animals were out in that ocean.
wow.
And it was intimidating for me. So anyway, surfing at my age, there are people, but not many. So
Yeah. You're so
so
active.
paddling. So much
So much
paddling. Like soccer. Everybody's watching soccer now. I'm like, it's so much running. So much running.
I think soccer will die down once we pass the World Cup. It was on at the bar where I did an open mic. I'm like, this place has never watched soccer ever. And this
Right.
like, it's like a VFW hall. I'm like, they don't have soccer on
Yeah.
here.
What am I saying? Is this America? That's what I said to someone because I was in LA at a show the first night of the where America played. I don't know who we played. It was on everywhere. Everybody was screaming and yelling, but I thought, what country am I living in?
Yeah. Well, we have it here in Philly. We're one of the cities for the World
Yeah.
Cup. So it hasn't been, I don't know, I haven't seen much activity. I've seen, well, whatever. I've seen some people in the streets with jerseys on and tourists. We're supposed to have a lot of stuff going on here with America 250.
Yeah.
Um, I think
Yeah.
given the
That's
state of, yeah, but given the state of America, I don't think it's as big of a celebration as people expected. That seems to be the
yeah.
vibe, unfortunately.
Yeah. Much
Yeah,
different.
much
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
Much different. But I'm going to go down with my grandson. Will be visiting. He's 28, and we're going to go down to San Diego to on the harbor. They'll lay out fireworks on two barges over the water. It's just beautiful. And so we're going to go down there, and hopefully people will behave. You know, that's the other thing. Everything is political now. What is wrong with people? Are you more than who you vote for? Please be more than who you vote for. Please be thinking about something else.
Yeah, that's the
They're not
tough part.
going to help us. I've been here 70 years. I'm telling you, I've lived through so many elections. They're not here to help us.
Yeah.
They're really not.
I try to get more into economics in my comedy than and that disparity than getting specifically political. Like I think people can know where I stand without I can't do Orange Man bad jokes that haven't been done. It's a
Yeah.
lot of the same hack stuff.
Low hanging fruit, don't you think?
It's very much low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ICK jokes are low hanging fruit. Well,
Yeah.
one that I sometimes use, but I don't very often. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the orange. Yeah, the orange. I know I got a spray tan for the wedding. And when I went to this place, I never a spray tan. I went to this place. I said, I don't want to look like our president. All cracked up. No, I didn't. It washed off.
I was trying to
So,
work on something about like white people just can't resist an orange tan, even with that. We all want to be a little orange. That's
right,
kind of
we do. We do. Yeah, that's a good bit. Yeah, we do. We all certainly do want to be darker.
yeah, that's something.
That's something. I know. I think it's good. I'm jealous. My husband goes out in the pool and he becomes this bronze god. I look like a lobster. I
I've
think
somehow gotten whiter. I used to tan like an Italian, and now I just burn. I don't know what's the German side has come out a little more for me.
we will make you burn. I have friends who are Germans. I have a friend who's a German engineer. Talk about somebody who's uptight. Oh my God.
I bet he's the most efficient person you know.
Oh, he won't drive a car, he only rides a bicycle, won't eat any meat. There's so many rules. I'm like, could you just give me the book? I just want to, it's my friend's boyfriend. But anyway, he won't listen to this. So anyway, yeah, he's a lot of fun. All right.
This is
Well,
fun.
this was fun. I think I love you already. Just so
Oh,
you know.
thank you. That's really sweet. I love you too.
I'm just crazy about you, and if I go out, we're going to go out to Philadelphia, to Pennsylvania because my husband's doing a shoot on a big knife deal that we did. They're going to do some video and stuff. So maybe we'll get to meet. Maybe I'll go to an
Yeah.
open mic with you or something.
Keep me posted.
Are you in Philly or are you outside of Philly?
I'm in Philly. So, yeah. So, I mean, and the scene here has gotten a lot bigger. There's a ton of mics. Every night there's at least 5. So,
That's great.
yeah.
For now, yeah, and I'm up for doing as many. I keep threatening to move to New York so I can do all the mics all the time. My husband says, "No, I'm not going back there. We're not going." So, all right. Well, sweetie. Well, Steve.
Suzi, thank you so much.
Thank you so much too. Bye.